Good afternoon, participants. So, I'm having great pleasure in welcoming Mr. E. Sridhar Kumar, Senior Manager of PHG TIFACO Center for Additive Manufacturing. Mr. Sridhar Kumar has more than 20 years experience in various capacities in R&D, production, factory management, and academic institutions also. For the past 11 years, he is working in the field of additive manufacturing at PHG TIFACO Lab, and they are extending the service.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all. I'm Sridhar Kumar, Senior Manager, PHG TIFACO. This is a Center for Product Design, established with support of DST Government of India under the scheme of TIFAC. Probably you all know about TIFAC, Technology Innovation Forecasting Assessment Council, which is a separate wing, comes under Ministry of Science and Technology. This center was established in the year of 2001, and we have facilities for additive manufacturing, specifically in plastic side. All the three major technologies are available here: stereolithography, FDM, and as well as SLS. Also, we have a facility for 3D modeling and re-engineering, like of scanners, 3D scanners of different kinds, two, three types of scanners we have. And also we have facility for vacuum casting to extend service for the industrial projects. With this brief introduction, I'm just directly going to session today. Probably in the morning sessions, you might have seen about introduction to additive manufacturing, or layer manufacturing, or rapid prototyping, recently called as 3D printing, different names. So initial days, this particular technology was largely used for rapid prototyping. There is proto model development. So generally, if you go to any industry, the new product development strategy, you can see in the screen, which starts from development of strategy and then idea generation and screening the various ideas and selecting a specific concept, and then testing that concept and making a detailed analysis, business analysis of that particular concepts. Then we go for the product development, where we used to make engineering drawing and then 3D model and all these things. Prior to the invention of modeling softwares, a draftsman in the industry used to do all these 2D and 3D, all the things. And once the final drawing is ready, before going to regular production, it is an industrial practice to go for a proto model development. Maybe a same size or scale down size, or maybe with same material or alternate material, the proto model would be developed to make sure that the design is as per the requirement. Then only it will with the proto development, they used to go for market survey, market testing, and then regular commercialization starts with development of tool and regular production, all these things. So these are the steps which involved in new product development. So prior to this invention of CAD/CAM, the industry used to follow a conventional method of designing and manufacturing. Probably you can see in the screen a traditional process of product development. It is called a linear developments. There the customer will pass the requirement to the marketing personnel, and the marketing personnel will communicate the requirement of the customer to the R&D, where the new product development is to happen. Then it will go to the production personnel to make it suitable for the manufacturing. That means to feasibility for manufacturing, and again come back. All these things happens in a linear way. So the time consumption in this, and as well as in this methodology, and as well as the communication between the departments are very difficult. So in the recent past, in the recent days, maybe within some 3-4 decades, the concurrent engineering, the manufacturing, where the complete team will be involved into the discussion, which includes sales, marketing, R&D, manufacturing, and specifically even the service segment also will be taken into account, because the service side can give the useful feedback about the existing product, what we have, and what are frequently the problems are raising and how we are sorting out. So those problems can be addressed easily and can be taken into consideration while developing the new product. So once all these things are ready, so the final drawing is ready. So then again they used to go for the proto model development. Generally in olden days they used to do with alternate materials, wood, wax, or clay kind of materials are largely used, and again even the same material like metals and all can be used, or plastics can be used as a material to produce the proto model. Since lack of facility and communication gap between the technical expert and the proto model developer, most of the cases the proto model producer would be a semi educated person, though they have a skilled person. For example, if you would like to produce the proto model by using wood, eligible carpenter would be identified, and tools and other facilities would be given to them. I'm talking about prior to CAD/CAM introduction. So the time consumption for the new product development was huge. That maybe you can take an example from the automotive side. Maybe during the Ambassador development, Ambassador car we all know very well. Between the Mark 1 to Mark 2 and Mark 2 to Mark 3, or Mark 3 to Mark 4, they took nearly 5 to 6 years time for the developments. So these all things are happened because of lack of the proper assistance in the new product development. So once after the invention of CAD/CAM, so most of the drawings should be developed in a 3D, three-dimensional manner, and can be easily visualized. And you can able to calculate the volume, and you can able to calculate the weight by giving density, all this thing. So material calculation also easily we can able to do. And next level, the visualization is the other important area. It can be easily covered with CAD support. So after once the CAD is developed, till development of additive machines, the industry used to again take this to communicate to the craftsman who is going to produce the proto with all the specifications. Though all these things are happened, there would be a lot of gap in during the communication. So to address this issue, how to directly taking the input from CAD and taking to the proto model development. So that was the need of the industry in those days. So that is the reason the additive machines were being developed in the 1980s, which supported to produce the proto model within short period. So where the CAD input would be taken, CAD drawing would be taken as the input, and that would be given to the machine. The machine will automatically take the data from the CAD drawing and produce the proto model. Since it is the production would be happened within with a fast manner, it was called as rapid prototyping. So in the early days, almost all the additive machines have been largely used for proto model development. So the 5 key benefits of using this additive for the rapid prototyping, you can see here: realizing the design concepts easily, no need of waiting for weeks or months together as like the conventional method what we faced, and incorporating the changes instantly in case if the design has some problem after once developed with the proto model, we can come to know, and immediately you can able to incorporate the changes in the drawing, and we can go for the next output, and we can verify whether the product is as per our design or not. And then this also supports to reduce the cost, no need of searching for the human skilled human resource and tools and machineries required for the conventional proto requirements, and also time can be drastically reduced, and customizing the design also possible here. and you can minimize the design flaws. So these are the 5 advantages which we can get with support of additive manufacturing while using this additive side for the new product development. So probably we all know, simply we can give the definition to the additive. It's a creation of reality model layer by layer. That is very important term that we will see why this layer was largely used by accepting CAD file as input. So the conversion of CAD data to a physical model is done with additive machine. So this process may be a deposition or the solidification, depends upon the technologies. So the next thing we can see, what is the difference between additive and subtractive. We all know in the subtractive side, a block would be given and unwanted material will be removed, only the wanted material will be retained, and there will be, you can see the huge material wastage happens. And you can see in the second category B, where we can use only the material wherever it is required. The wastage of the material is minimized, and moreover, the realization would be very fast. So now it is one among the manufacturing activities in the almost all the industries. Starts from automobile and consumer goods, aerospace, defense, wherever we go. Nowadays it is unavoidable. Every industry used to have one small additive machine to develop their CAD drawing and immediately putting into the machine, seeing that how it looks like, and all this thing can be easily evaluated. And you can, other advantage, it will reduce the begins with CAD. You can see here no machining is required, so no raw material wastage. That are the thing. And bottom side you can see how the process happens. The 3D CAD input would be given in STL format to the additive machine. So there will be a slicing software. Only thing is you have to keep it orientation in a proper way. Orientation plays a lot of role there, specifically on quality and as well as on costing. So the slicing software available with the machine slice our CAD data into a number of layers. So you can have the control on the layer thickness also. Every additive machines will be having some 2-3 layer options. If you go for a thin layer, we'll get a smooth surface finish. If you go for a thicker layer, obviously the surface roughness should be there. So the slicing software will slice your CAD data into a number of layers. Then each and every layer, the input will be taken as a layer by layer and given to the additive machine, which start produce your model there. So this is the process. You can see the CAD file, the STL, and slicing. And after once the layers to be fitted to the machine would be having 2 parts, the software and as well as hardware. The hardware side is the manufacturing side, and software side can able to support the slicing, orientation kind of thing. So this is a brief idea about editing. So this is why the prototype is required, all this thing for the industrial application. In most of the cases, it would be a scaled down version. In case if your product is huge, probably may not able to build in your additive machine, which would be having a limitation of build volume or build platform size. So the scaled down version will be largely used, depends upon the product size. And your prototype developed with support of additive can be used to communicate to the tool engineers, process planners, manufacturing engineers, and marketing personnel about the product feature. So even it will be largely used to make a survey in the field. The proto model, whatever developed, would be given to the marketing personnel or a sales personnel who can carry maybe the scaled down version to the customer and explain to the customer, take the feedback from the customer during the product development itself, and do all the necessary correction according to the input received from the close clients. Close clients means the clients who are very closely work with our industry. We will be having a different kind of customer cycle. So the close clients can be interacted easily with the proto model, and you can explain to them the new product is going to function so and so manner. At the time, the end user can able to give their input easily so that the necessary corrections can be done on the design. And most of the cases, even the proto model can be used for various kind of analysis, through stress kind of analysis, and it can be used to check the assembly. Any interference happening during assembly can be easily checked. So these are the initial days of additive usage in the industry sector. And now you can see additive is used in a different industry sector. Largely, you can even now it is largely used by automobile industry and consumer goods, business machines, medical, academic, aerospace, government and defense, and other sectors. So these are the approximate utilization of additive manufacturing in various industrial and other activities. And where it can be largely used, you can see development of any new product can be reduced from months to days. And an engineer can test ideas easily. That means in the R&D application, it is largely used. And it can be support the doctors to communicate the issues to the patients through tangible models. And even some of the cases, the doctors, it supports the doctors to plan complicated surgeries and reduce the time. And even for the students, it can be used as a teaching aid. It can be used the output from additive side. I will share some of the examples in the later stage of presentation. And it eliminates, even in the architecture, it can be largely used. And product developers can discuss market potential with prospective clients with the proto model or the development of whatever the model development support of additive side, and verify the design before investing on a very expensive molding tool. That is the other big advantage for the molding industries. Okay, so this we have already seen, and you can see here the foundry industry before invention of the metal additive on the early stage in the 90s and the 2000, early 2000. This additive is largely used to produce patents for the investment casting also. So foundry industry was using this because in case of any pilot level manufacturing with minimum numbers of 50 or 100 numbers, so no need of investing on tools, there the patents can be produced in additive side itself. And you can see here what are the target groups can be used with additive. And now we will come to the history of additive manufacturing. Probably the initiatives been taken in 1980s with Charles Suhr in Germany, who was invented the stereolithography technology in the later stage. And this gentleman developed a technology called stereolithography SLA, which is largely used by various kind of industries nowadays. Later, this particular technology based machines was produced by a company called 3D Systems. The very first machine was launched in 1992. And later on, plenty of developments happened. You can see the roadmap in 1999, PolyJet or future deposition modeling. And later on, different kind of technologies that we are going to see in the coming slides. So probably this slide may be having problem to view, but I have split ups of this slide in the future slides. So various kind of methodology, see the classification of additive on various kind of application based. The very first thing is VAT photopolymerization, largely for plastic additive manufacturing, and material exclusion, that is also largely for plastic, and material jetting, again it also for plastic and sand, and binder jetting again for sand, and powder bed fusion, MJF multi-jet fusion for plastic, and SLS for again plastic, and DMLS and SLM for metal, and electron beam melting for metal again, and direct energy deposition lens again for metal, and EBAM also for metal, and laminated object manufacturing. So these are some of the overall classification. but not all the technologies are largely used in industry. So now we will go one by one. So let us start with VAT polymerization. Most common machine nowadays available in the additive market is stereolithography, SLA, generally we call it as. This technology was developed by a company called 3D Systems, and later on a lot of 3-4 companies are into this field. And next thing is the digital light processing, DLP, generally we call it as. Both are almost the same. Raw material is the liquid resin kept in a vat, and in the stereolithography, a powerful laser system would be used for the solidification, and here the light source would be used as the energy source. And continuous digital light processing also other thing, which would be comparatively faster than these two technologies in production. So now let us go to stereolithography, the SLA technology, the term created in 1986 by Hull, founder of 3D printing company called 3D Systems in. And in 1992, this first machine was launched into the market. And later on, you can see series of machines, project 6000 series, 7000, Pro X 800. All these machines are owned by 3D Systems. And probably this technology we all know about. You can see inside a small this thing, vat full of resin, photocurable resin, which is the raw material which largely used for the stereolithography. And you can see a moving piston, and this is the build platform. In the initial stage, this platform would be on the topmost layer of the resin. And there are other inclusions here are the power source laser and also scanning mirrors to scan the 3D model, the CAD input what we are getting, and diverting the laser power into the machine. So in this here, in the initial stage of the process, the moving platform would be on topmost layer, a thin layer of resin will be spread over the platform. You can control the layer of the resin thickness also by varying the layer thickness. So it depends upon the layer thickness, the thickness of resin spread over the build platform varies. And then once the process started, the input would be taken from the CAD file, where your CAD file might be sliced into a number of layers. That is what the process is called as layer manufacturing. So the base layer would be taken as the first input, and that would be taken with galvanometers or the scanning mirrors, and it would be scanned with support of laser. So the laser will scan, copy, or receive the input from the CAD and scan over the photopolymer. So while scanning on the photopolymer, wherever the laser rays falls, that area will get solidified. So the rest of the area, the resin would be in the liquid stage, only wherever the scanning happens. The scanning happens based on the input from the CAD file. So like each and every layer gets solidified, and once the first layer solidification over, this moving platform moves down. The distance moves down equivalent to the layer thickness what you opted in the machine, and then the next layer development happens. Like layer by layer, the solidification process happens here. At the end of the process, your part will be immersed completely inside the resin. So it will be taken out with this moving piston, and it will be taken for cleaning and curing with UV chamber, and later on it will be taken for the post-processing and can be delivered to the customer. So this is the one kind of technology, the first machine, additive machine, stereolithography. Generally, we call it as SLA. And next thing is the same VAT polymerization, the technology called DLP, digital light processing. A company called Envision Tech is very strong in this machine series. And here, it is the reverse, it is the same thing like SLA. In stereolithography, you can see your part would be, the development happens from the top, and your part would be immersed inside the resin. Whereas here, the development happens from the bottom of the resin, You can see here the power source come here and would be taken, the CAD scan data would be taken here. And from here, it would be happen. Here the support should be very strong because you can see here the build platform would be moving towards upwards, whereas here the build platform moving downwards, whereas here the moving platform moves upwards. So, and also this is a kind of a digital light processing. The whole image of the particular layer would be scanned and would be easily given to the energy source, so that it is not like a say movement that here in SLA, the laser will move layer by layer, and each profile will be drawn over the polymer, liquid polymer. Whereas here, they complete whatever the profiles in the particular layer will be, as such would be taken, and the solidification happens at one stretch of the complete layer, so that the process will be comparatively fast in CDLP. So this is other technology in wet polymerization. And next one, what we are going to see is the material extrusion. Generally, fusion deposition modeling, generally we call it as FDM. And here, the raw material used is again a plastic in a filament form. And this filament would be a small video to explain this. You can see here.
The prototype starts as an STL file generated from a 3D CAD program. The model is oriented within the computer exactly as it will be built in the FDM machine. Orientation may affect build time, strength of features, and support material generation. Once the model is oriented, the software divides the model into evenly spaced planar sections, each measuring as small as a few thousandths of an inch. Supports are then generated for overhanging sections. Each layer consists exclusively of non-overlapping and non-intersecting curves. Tool paths are created in the regions indicating whether the FDM machine should extrude model material or support material. Once the tool paths controlling the XY movements have been generated for all layers, a file is created and sent to the FDM machine. Inside the heated build envelope, the model material in filament form is heated to a less viscous state for extrusion. The model is built layer by layer from the bottom up. On each layer, the extrusion tips follow the tool paths calculated in the computer. After each layer is completed, the plate drops and a new layer is added. When the final layer is complete, the modeled part can be removed. After support material is removed, you are left with a strong, durable, and functional prototype.
So this is the material extrusion. The filament will be passed through the extruders and it will get liquefied. And you can see a small reservoir for the liquid plastic here. And there are moving tips you can see here. I'm very simply explaining here. So these moving, the CAD input be taken by these moving tips, like as our desktop printer, how the data should be taken from the CPU and printing on your paper. The same way, the printing happens on three-dimensional manner here. And there will be one more tip you can see here, which gives, which injects support material wherever it is required. The support generation is very important in additive manufacturing. Probably, whenever any elevated surfaces comes. In this case, you can see here in the aircraft, both the wings. One second, I will just explain.
The model is oriented within the computer exactly as it will be built in the FDM machine.
So you can see in both the wings which are elevated, and you can both the wings. It's all elevated surface which need a support while building. So the machine will automatically build the support structure along with the model material. So wherever the support required, you can see the support generation happens in your system itself. Accordingly, the support material will be fed to the system. That's what you can see, the two extrusion outlets here. One is for model, another for the support material. You can see this is one of the biggest machine in the FDM with build dimension of 900 by 600 by 900 mm. So here you can see plenty of material options: ABS, PC, ABS, nylon. Like in SLA also we have material options, but the ranges are very limited in SLA, stereolithography, or in matte polymerization. Whereas here you can have a series of materials. This particular machine is one of the largely used machine in our center by our customers for their job works. So since the machine built volume is almost a cubic meter, and a very big components also can be easily printed in this machine. So the main supplier of this technology is Stratasys. Nowadays, a lot of manufacturers in the market. Once the technology is opened from the patent rights, plenty of companies are there. A lot of desktop printers being developed. The term 3D printer was developed after once the invention of this particular technology, because usually it prints like as a desktop printer. So generally we call it as, instead of 2D printer, 3D printer. So, and the next range of technology is material jetting. One is cured with UV light material jetting. There is nanoparticle jetting cured with heat, and milled to form is the DOD, drop on demand. You can see a polyjet 3D printer works like our regular inkjet printers. So the polyjet material also, you can see in the next slide. This is a machine what we are seeing here. This is the polyjet machine of Stratasys. The advantage here, you can build a component of rigid and as well as the flexible also in a single build. And further, you can have the advantage, you can see here, colors also, multiple colors also possible. In a single build, you can able to do transparent, opaque, and even different colors. So that's the advantage of polyjet. This is a technology largely developed with support with Stratasys. Nowadays, I think 2 or 3 manufacturers are also there in the market. And next thing is binder jetting. Binder jetting is selectively deposit the over the powder. It's again a powder bed one, and basically the binder material will be spread over the powder wherever the requirements comes. That means wherever the profile comes. So that area, the ink would be injected. So it will bind the material. It's basically a binding agent. It will bind the material. At the law, it is basically heat curing based one or a UV based one. It varies. So once the binder agent is spread over the platform wherever the profiles are there, and it can be cured with support of either temperature or with support of energy source, laser source. The main thing is the company called Voxeljet, which they from Germany. You can see the build space of 2000 by 1000 by 1000 mm, largely used to develop a sand casting course. This particular technology. So other one is multi-jet fusion. Here actually lamps and light source are used to curing. Here there are 2 agents should be added. One is the fusing agent. Again, the powder bed only. Over that, first the fusing agent would be injected over the platform wherever the profiles are there, and then a detailing agent would be added, which would be injected around the contours to improve the part resolution. All uneven surfaces can be easily finished. Once this process is completed, the lamp will pass over the surface of the powder bed, where both the chemicals will react to each other and captures the heat from the light, and automatically it will be fused actually. So HP is the main producer of this MJF technology based machines. So these three comes under fusion. You can see here once again material jetting with UV light curing. The second thing is heat, and third thing is drop on demand. This is very limited use. It's largely used in jewelry industry. This DOD technology. And next thing what we are going to see is sintering technologies. So powder bed fusion, generally call it as. The very first one is SLS, long back, probably in 2000 this particular technology was developed and introduced into the industrial application. Again, 3D systems and a company called UAS involved into this manufacturing of this machine. So here there will be a build platform over there, the powder will be spread over, and there will be a laser in the top, as like as in stereolithography. The scanning would be done, the input would be taken from the CAD file, and this your laser will move on the platform. So wherever the profile is there, that particular area the powder will get fused, and rest of the area the powder will be in the powder form itself. So layer by layer, once the particular layer fusion is over or polymerization is over, the build platform moves down, a fresh layer of powder will be spread over, and the next layer information will be taken and it will be fused. The whole build platform will be maintained at particular temperature so that the adhesion between the internal layers will be perfectly maintained. You can see a small video clip of this particular thing. It's a powder spreader. You can see here the laser will scan over the surface. So it's a fusion happens here, and you can see the build platform moves down, and again a fresh layer of powder will be spread over, and again the laser will take the input from the CAD data on fusion. So this is called a selective laser sintering process, basically. SLS, one of the oldest technology after SLA and FDM. SLA was introduced first, and SLS and FDM are introduced almost on the same period. And you can see the brief spec of this particular machine. Normally available, the build platform size varies according to the manufacturers. The effective build volume, this is a EOS machine being taken for the case study, and 340 by 340 by 600 in XYZ. And any component of this size can be built in this machine. And it is not mean that bigger components cannot be built in these machines. In case if the part size is bigger, we used to cut into 2 or 3 pieces and process it and glue it after once the process is completed. That is quite possible in the industrial application. Mostly a lot of the service providers used to have various kind of build platform sizes. So the build platform size also playing a lot of role in specifically in commercial centers. So you can see the built-in speed here, 48 mm in height per hour, and layer thickness again varying. You can see you can build 0.06 mm or 0.1 mm or 0.12 mm that you can adjust, and largely you can see the carbon dioxide based laser will be used on the laser power in stereolithography and as well as in SLS and all less than 50 or 70 watts only, not like as laser source what we use in metal. So the material option in SLS is largely for the nylon based plastic, and even option for glass fed nylon also would be available here. So this machine is largely used for R&D application, specifically in medical application, and even at our center we largely use for medical application by adding some other material as composite, like nylon and DA composition we used for some sort of medical implants production, which is not been used for human application. It's for research with animal study. So that kind of application, this machine is largely used, and you can see the other technology is SLM, selective laser melting, and you can see even in this itself, there is one more technology for the metal and the selective laser, in the laser sintering itself, that is called DMLS, direct metal laser sintering. That machine also work on the same principle only. And even SLR, you can see here. Instead of plastic powder, the metal powder would be taken on the build platform. You can see here the laser power. What here it is only 70 watts, whereas here it would be 400 watts minimum, and it would be multiples of the energy source, 2 into 400 or 4 into 400. Depends upon the energy source, the speed of the machine would be varying. When it comes to metal, the power of energy source plays a lot of role on mechanical properties also, like residual stress can be minimized in case if you are using powerful energy source. And you can see in the metal machine, and it's basically a metal machine selective laser melting. A company called SLM is launching this machine, and recently they introduced one of the biggest metal additive machine. SLM launched recent past. They're into this area for more than last 10, 15, sorry, 15, 20 years. And one of the main metal additive manufacturing machine. And here, Evo is also not only producing SLS, and they are producing DMLS based machine also. Evo is having more insulation in metal additive machine, specifically the powder bed. Hope you can able to view the slides now. Hello? Hello?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
You could able to see the presentation now?
No, sir. No, sir.
No. Again, some problem in the connection. Could you able to see now?
No, sir. No, sir. Sir, one suggestion, sir.
Yeah.
You have to share whole screen, sir, not a window. You have to share a whole screen that is visible to all.
No, I couldn't get you.
Sir, you have to share a whole screen, sir, not a window. You have to share
I
whole screen.
understand.
That
I
is better
understand.
to view.
Full screen, entire screen. There is some problem here.
Yes, sir.
You can able to see
Now
now,
visible.
right?
Now visible.
Yeah, sorry. I think some problem. using this technology to develop some sort of valve system for aircraft engine manufacturing. And GE procured more than somewhat around 25 to 30 machines from Arcam in the early, maybe in 2010-11 at the time, and strongly used this machine for the valve manufacturing for the aircraft engine requirement. And one fine day, they have taken over this company, and now it is owned by GE. And the GE is using this machine largely for aerospace and defense application, producing titanium, Inconel. These two other materials, and even some nickel-based superalloys, are largely used in this particular machine. And it's really a wonderful technology for the aerospace requirement. You can see a small video about this particular technology.
The additive manufacturing industry continues to accelerate as more and more businesses see the value in this revolutionary technology. Setting the pace is GE Additive's latest EBM innovation, a system that's enabling a new phase of high-volume industrial production. At the center of this next-generation system is the Arcam EBM Spectra H, a machine capable of producing parts at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, has increased build sizes and speeds while simplifying operation. Spectra operates within a closed-loop system to create a dust-tight environment, ensuring powders are completely contained and never cross-contaminated or exposed to external elements. It starts in the powder hoppers, featuring an automatic shutoff valve that eliminates the risk of powder spilling. A new powder distribution system automatically creates a smooth, even layer for optimal part production. This simplified build preparation ensures reliability and repeatability while reducing dependency on manual operators. Key to Spectra H's ability to deliver market-leading high-temperature production is the newly designed build chamber. Movable heat shields create improved insulation, forming the ideal environment for exceptional part production. An auto-calibrated 6-kilowatt beam delivers a 100% increase in power to provide up to 50% faster builds, allowing manufacturers to begin transitioning into high-volume outputs. Boosting production capacity also comes from Spectra H's expanded build volume, 39% larger than the previous generation EBM machine. With this extended platform, it's possible to print larger parts than ever before and produce more parts at one time. And with Spectra H's high heat capability, users can incorporate new alloys such as titanium aluminide into production to expand their offerings, including high-temperature anti-corrosive materials. When the part build is complete, the entire build tank is removed and placed in the Spectra Powder Recovery System docking station to maintain powder integrity. Once in position, the part is cleaned with compressed air and powder. In the PRS, smaller particles are removed in a cyclone cleaner. After that, the powder passes through a magnetic separator to remove any metallic satellites picked up in the cleaning process. After the part is removed from the PRS, the loose powder is automatically transferred in a closed system to a barrel. The closed loop process is maintained as the sealed barrel is moved to a newly designed auto-dosing sieve, where oversized particles are separated, and the powder again passes through a magnetic separator. Faster builds, increased reliability, and leading production at high temperatures. The Spectra H and next-gen EBM system deliver a new level of...
Probably you can see the videos in the website itself. And the advantage of this particular technology compared to other metal additive manufacturing is the high energy source when this particular technology was launched. Even now, the companies EOAs or SLMs comes up with more energy power than this machine. You can see here 3000 watts, 3 kilowatts laser power. The advantage of using high energy power is the temperature gradient would be maintained in a perfect manner so that the residual stress of the component produced in this particular machine would be very less compared to SLM or DMLS machines. And the other advantage is all the laser machines are using inert gas atmosphere, whereas in EBM, the complete build would be happens, the complete process happens inside the vacuum. So that's the other advantage. So the homogeneity can be maintained in a better way, and also contamination can be completely eliminated. That's the reason this technology is largely used for aerospace and medical application. A company in China, they have more than 35 additive machines at one place, largely EBM machines to produce medical implants for the various kind of requirements like orthopedic and as well as different kind of medical applications also. So that's the advantage compared to laser machine. Electron beam is having. Both the machines are having advantages and disadvantages. Laser-based machines, the surface roughness would be very smooth, and can be used largely for the conformal cooling channels, kind of hollow. For example, these are some of, I will just compare both the things in the next slide. This is some of the components produced in EBM, and again we will let us go back to this thing. You can see here this kind of channels, cooling channels, can be easily built in laser machines like DMLS and SLR, where electron beam will not support much because the internal surface smoothness may not be maintained in a perfect manner like laser machine. Other than that, any solid component, this is a wall system what we are talking about. It's basically in a conventional manufacturing, it's assembly of 20 parts to make it as a single unit, whereas in additive, you can reduce the number of parts, and it was built as a single component. And also material consumption, the weight of the part was reduced by 25%. That is what the aerospace industry is required. So RKM, again we can go here, they have developed a material called titanium alumni, which is largely used in aerospace application, normally for the turbine blades kind of requirements. So if you visit any aerospace companies, there you can see they would be having more EBM machine than on laser machine. So that's the advantage of this particular thing. On general engineering side, if you look into laser machine supports lot. And material options you can see on the other side, we will discuss about that also. Now let us study about the lens and the other technology. Here even it's basically a direct energy deposition. You can see here in these two technologies, powder bed and laser power comes from the top. The energy, both are powder bed systems, even the energy source only varies. In SLM and DMLS, laser will be used. In the electron beam will be used as the energy source. Whereas here in direct DED, generally we call it as direct energy deposition, you can see the energy source comes from the top. Instead of powder material spread over the build platform in powder bed fusion, here the material also will be injected through the nozzle. And you can increase the nozzle numbers, either 2 or 3, so that you can use different kind of material at a single build. That is the advantage of this particular technology. The energy source comes from, you can see here, from the middle. So the injection nozzle would be having 2-3 nozzles, the material delivery nozzles, and this is the energy source. So directly it would be melted here and it would be printed over the platform. That is called direct energy deposition. So Optomec is one of the main major producer of DED machines. DED, you can see high build volumes, like as 800 by 600 by 600, not like as a powder bed fusion. Powder bed fusion, you can have a build volume restrictions of around 400. Recently, SLM has launched a machine with 600 by 600 by 600. But DED, we will be having an advantage where you can have a huge build platform, and I can say even PSG, we got a project from DST to build a indigenous metal additive manufacturing machine based on DED technology. The development is off the way now, probably will be completed after 1 year, and then it will be going for validation kind of thing. So this particular machine we are developing indigenously with support of Government of India. So the main advantage in this kind of DED thing is you can have a bigger build platform, but the surface roughness should be more, not like as powder bed fusion. So nowadays there are machineries which are coming up in the market, hybrid machines, where the additive and as well as subtractive, both the facilities available in the single machine. Once the build is over in additive, the part will be taken to the subtractive side where the surface finishing can be done without much difficulty. So that kind of hybrid machines also been introduced into the market by a company from Japan, and even German companies also involved in that kind of developments. So this is DED technology, and you can see here powder bed fusion and powder laser and EBM, laser based powder bed fusion and electron beam based powder bed fusion. What are the material options? You can see in the laser machine too many material options here, except titanium aluminide. Rest you can see titanium, cobalt, chromium, tool steel, stainless steel, inconel, aluminum, copper, tungsten, precious metal. All these things are possible. Whereas in EBM, there are limitations in the material. Titanium, cobalt, chromium, and inconel, copper. Since because of the high energy source, aluminum kind of material cannot be used here. Whereas the usage of marrying steel and stainless steel being introduced recently after recent developments at ORCAM, we got an opportunity to visit this their global R&D center located at Gothenburg in Sweden. At the time, we could able to see that the developments of material happening there. So now 2 more materials are will be added into EBM. So these are the material options in both metal and laser and EBM. Whereas DED, there is no any material restrictions. You can have anything. That's advantage. This we have seen, and this is the parts which are produced in additive medical implants. This is a hip joint, and this is for the kinoplasty kind of requirement for maxillofacial applications. So titanium is the material which is largely used, and cobalt chromium is for the knee joints. Hip joints largely industry uses titanium alloys. So these 2 materials are having a lot of medical application in metal additive. And you can see here this kind of complex parts can be easily built in additive, where the conventional machines, conventional technologies will not support at all. Okay, and this kind of conformal cooling channels for the tooling industry, plastic injection mold, where the productivity can be increased 60 to 70% by cooling the tool immediately after one injection. That is very essential. So the conformal cooling channels will be generated inside the tool, where the coolant will be circulated to reduce the temperature of the tool. So this kind of conformal cooling channels can be easily built in laser-based machine. So this metal additive machines can support tooling industry largely also. And topology optimization is the other possibility. In metal, we can reduce the material consumption in such a way, and also reduce the weight. That is the reason metal additive machines are largely nowadays used to produce the components for aircraft engine manufacturing. And even some composite material based plastic additive manufacturing also largely used to produce seating systems for aircraft, where the lesser weight substitution of composites supports the industry to reduce the material weight. And now for a small case study, I would like to present to here how PAG Typhocure was involved in the medical application for the last more than 18 years. The very first case was attended by PAG Typhocure. For this case, a cranoplasty case, a person met with an accident, there is a damage in the skull. This surgery was done in 2003. So what regularly the medical industry do, they follow autologous rib graft methodology, where the ribs will be removed from the same human body and the damage would be covered with ribs and covered with a synthetic skin. So this was probably the first case in the country, maybe first surgery performed by using additive at KMCH in Coimbatore in 2003. This is a case you can see here, the right front temporal tunnel defect. There is no any bone inside. It's a defected skull, and the radiograph shows the clear damage. The red color what we are seeing is the no material area. Okay, and what the doctor Parthiban, JKBC Parthiban was the surgeon involved in the surgery. So he wanted to use additive technology for this surgery in 2003 itself. So at the time there was no any much development in the CAD software development. So we used ImageWare and also no scanning kind of thing. So what we did was we with support of a doctor and engineer, a 3D model was developed with ImageWare software to fill this gap. So the doctor studied the CT data and given the tentative dimension of this particular damage, and accordingly a 3D model was developed here. And in 2003 and all, there was no much development in the metal additive side. So what we used is the FDM to produce the template, but unfortunately we used the ABS, no medically or biocompatible material availability. So ABS, we used this component cannot be used directly into the human skull. So since it is not a biocompatible. So what we did, we have used Dental Lab acrylic processing technology to take the output from PMMA, polymethyl with acrylate. It's basically a biocompatible material. The doctor said he imported this material and we developed a template, kind of silicon mold, and filled this with PMMA material. And this is a biocompatible one. This was directly used into the human skull. You can see here incision was made, defect was clearly exposed, and surgical planning being done and positioning being done here. You can see here, and titanium strips and screws are used to fix it with skull support. The final fixation being done, and this is a radiograph to confirm the presence of implant inside. So this surgery was this prior to surgery and after surgery. The patient is doing well even till last year. So we meet doctor regularly. So we inquire about some of the specific cases. And such a kind of interesting case, a 10-month baby with a twisted skull defect. So open cut surgery to be performed on this baby of 10-month-old. And this surgery was done at one hospital in Coimbatore. More than 8 doctors, experts from various hospitals of South India involved in this. So where the doctors would like to conduct the rehearsal prior to going for the most complicated case. So we supported again, taking the CT data, converted into 3D printable format, and using a flexible material, this was built and given to doctor to conduct the rehearsal by using regular surgical bloods. So this was the other case. And this is the other interesting case for maxillofacial. This all done before 2010 actually, 2011. And you can see a person with, it's basically a cancer kind of dishes. It was, you know, a part of lower jaw was affected. So doctor has gone for a implant here. Generally we call it as plastic surgery. So the patient want to maintain the same aesthetic as like his how he was looking prior to this cancer. So doctor used a strip, a titanium strip, to take the flow of this one. This particular defected part was built in stereotherapy and given to doctor. Doctor used a titanium strip to take this flow alone to get the same aesthetic. And later on, he has gone for regraft, removed the ribs from the same human body and filled with this thing, and this was directly incorporated into the lower jaw of the patient. So these are some of the cases we have done, and some 1.5 years back we have done a highly critical case. A 14-year-old boy had a thymoma. It's a kind of cancer in between liver, lungs, and heart, all three important organs of size of around 140 mm. So it was pushing all the organs and giving trouble to the breathing of the boy. So highly complicated case. Most of the hospitals are not willing to take this case. The surgery was done at our hospital, and 2 attempts we made a proto of the case and given to doctor. Two times doctor conducted the rehearsal, and third time they have directly gone for the surgery and succeeded. So these are the way the auditive is supporting the medical. Still too many cases are there due to time constraint. Even I was telling professor on that day, if you give me a presentation on medical side, I can give a wonderful thing, but almost already the topic was related to some other expert. And hopefully this information was highly useful for all the participants. With the time constraint, I think I have given some sort of basic knowledge about various technologies in additive. I would like to conclude here. Thank you for your opportunity. In case of any questions, you can.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the very wonderful and informative session. Participants, if you have any query, you can unmute your mic and you can ask the questions to the expert. Okay, sir. It seems a very informative and a clarity presentation.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for sparing your valuable time with us in spite of your busy schedule. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Murugappa Polytechnic and Department of Mechanical Engineering, my heartiest thanks to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.